Hello and welcome to the Mapathon for Sierra Leone and Guinea. My name is Courtney Clark and I work for the Peace Corps on our humanitarian mapping initiative. I'll be hosting this training with some of my colleagues and peers, and I'm really excited for today's event. We'll each take a minute now to introduce ourselves, and then we'll speak more about this project. And then we'll also have a training on how to edit OpenStreetMap for both Sierra Leone and for Guinea. But for now, I'll pass it off to my co-host, Anne-Claire, to introduce herself.
My name is Anne-Claire. I actually live in Holland, in Amsterdam, but I'm now for a few weeks in Delaware, in the US, because my boyfriend lives here, and he is from Sierra Leone, so that's actually the reason I got involved in this event.
Great. Right, Benson, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, my name is Benson Wilder. I work with the MapGive campaign, which is a program of the U.S. State Department, and we work very closely with the Peace Corps and other colleagues in the U.S. government, including the U.S. Aid for International Development, and we're all working together to grow the community around OpenStreetMap, both volunteers around the world as well as local communities around mapping. So we met Anne-Claire at a conference earlier this year and decided we wanted to help get the word out to various members of the diaspora.
Awesome, thanks. Liz, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Liz Torre. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Guinea. I served between 2011 and 2014, and I am currently a grad student at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, getting my Master's of Public Health in Epidemiology.
Awesome. All right, Tom?
Hi, my name is Tom Gerton. I am also on the MapGive team, and I work with Benson. I'm just excited to attend this virtual mapping session. I remember the MapGive team was involved in several mapping tasks last year in the region, so I'm glad to continue supporting these types of mapping events.
Awesome, thank you, Tom. And I should mention that I served with Liz also as a Peace Corps volunteer in Guinea from 2012 to 2014. So this team has some very strong personal connections to the two countries that we're going to be mapping for today, and we're really looking forward to working with all of you. So I'm going to pass it back off to Anne-Claire, and she's going to speak to us, or she's going to speak with us about the importance of geographic and map data in Ebola response and prevention, and why we're even doing this today.
The idea, thank you. The idea started this spring at this summit of humanitarian OpenStreetMap, when I spoke to Benson of State Department and also somebody from Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, about how a big part of West Africa has been mapped for the Ebola, but it's not finished yet. And Ebola is not over, at least not in Sierra Leone. I think it's officially over in Liberia. I'm not sure about Guinea, actually. So there's still relief organizations going there. And there's also still other diseases going on. So it's really important to continue mapping so the relief organizations know where villages are, know where streets are, areas that are normally not well mapped on Google Maps. Also that the names of local villages, or the names that people use and not that the government is officially using, that those are mapped. So it's knowing where the roads are that are not always visible on official maps, and adding hopefully also local information to the maps. Information that people from Sierra Leone have that we cannot see on images. So it's to continue the ending of Ebola. It's really important to continue these maps and to hopefully finalize them. Anyone maybe want to add something?
This is Benson. I'll just add, as Tom mentioned, we supported a lot of mapping in the region last year, primarily in Sierra Leone and Liberia, although a lot of mapping had actually started in Guinea beginning in March or April of 2014. And just to emphasize what Anne-Claire said, we were getting direct requests from American Red Cross, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, was also getting mapping support directly from the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team and the mapping community. And then we heard subsequently about a number of organizations who were using the data in almost real time. As soon as the data was created, it was being used for logistics and for other purposes. So there really is a value here, and we can point anyone to resources to show you some tangible examples of how this detailed data is being used.
Great, thank you, Benson and Anne-Claire. And if you're watching live, I just want to remind you as well that if you have any questions you'd like to submit, you can do that using that blue Q&A button. Just go ahead and write in your questions, and we'll be monitoring that and answering those throughout the call. Also, if we have any links to share, we'll be putting those up in the showcase. And so keep an eye on that as well. So maybe, Benson, if you have any sort of blog posts or something interesting, a news article from the mapping response that occurred maybe last fall during the height of the Ebola crisis, that maybe we can put that up in the showcase as well for our live audience. All right, so we're gonna jump right into learning how to map on OpenStreetMap. It's very easy, and this won't take more than maybe 20 or 25 minutes. So if you're watching live, hopefully you have already created, and actually I would ask, while I'm doing this training, maybe if one of my colleagues on the call could be looking at the Q&A and moderating that, that would be awesome. I think someone just asked if they can join the Hangout, so maybe one of you could see what we can do about that. Or actually, I think we have to answer the question just verbally. So I'm not sure who asked if they can join the Hangout. Unfortunately, I think since we've already started the call, that might be tricky. Let's see what we can do about that maybe after we go through the training, because then we'll just be sort of hanging out and doing mapping, and it will be easier for us to try and see if we can get you in the call, if that's okay. Okay, so back to training in OpenStreetMap. I'm actually going to head over to screen share now. So if you are watching and you want to be learning how to map in OpenStreetMap, go ahead and just follow along with what I'm doing on my screen. Again, go ahead and submit your written questions if you have them. And Liz also is brand new to this process, so we're really excited to have her along, and she'll be able to ask some of those maybe beginners questions that you might be having as well. All right, so we're looking at mapping two different areas today. One is the Cambia district in Sierra Leone. So we have a YALI fellow, a Young African Leaders Initiative fellow, who is from the Cambia district and could definitely use a better base map of the area, and then also for her humanitarian work. And then the American Red Cross, as well as other organizations, need assistance building a better detailed base map of Cambia. So we're going to be mapping roads and buildings today. And I took a look at the latest Ebola situation report from the World Health Organization earlier today, and all 5 of last week's confirmed cases of Ebola were in Sierra Leone, so none in Liberia and Guinea for the moment. And all but one of the cases were registered contacts associated with the Cambia chain of transmission, as well as most of the contacts who are under observation right now through the contact tracing program are located in either the districts of Cambia or Bombali. So there's definitely still a very real and urgent need to get mapping done in the Cambia district. And we'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And then we'll also be looking at Foricaria and Farmoreia You would think after living in Guinea for two years I could pronounce that. Farmorea will be also mapping those areas in Guinea. And these, for Acaria in particular, has seen high rates, high incidence of Ebola, and is along the major route to Cambia. So we've seen sort of this route as a high-risk road for transmission. So if you have not created an account at OpenStreetMap, we can take a look at that real quick. So go ahead and head over to openstreetmap.org. And if one of my colleagues could put that link in the showcase, that would be fantastic. So I'm actually signed into my account. I'll sign out real quick so we can take a look at where to sign up. If you just head up over to the top right corner of your screen, you'll see this sign up screen, or the sign up button, excuse me, and you'll be able to register for an account. You'll want to do this using an email address that you can access right now, because you'll need to actually confirm your email address in order to actually log in and start using your account. So go ahead and do that quickly if you don't have an account, and I will log back into mine. All right, and as you are creating your account, or if you already have an account created, so you're just hanging out, I will also put the links to these two tasks that we're going to be working on in the showcase so that you will have access to them. If for some reason you are unable to find those links in the showcase, all that you'll need to do is go to this website, tasks.hotosm.org. No need for www. And then you can search for number 1168, again 1168, or number 1209. And either of those will take you to the task that we want to be working on today. And again, that search bar is just right here. So, for example, if I wanted to work in Sierra Leone, I would just type in 1168, and then you'll be good to go if you click that link. All right, so hopefully everyone has gotten their OpenStreetMap accounts squared away at this point. And we're going to just dive right into how to map. So,
Courtney, can you say the name of the link again one more time? I can't see it.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so for the task.
Yeah, great question. So you want to go to the following website. It's tasks.hotosm.org. And if you're looking at my screen, you can also see the link up in my URL bar here.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And final thing I should mention, for editing OpenStreetMap, we'll want to be using Chrome or Firefox or Safari. It generally does not work with Internet Explorer. So if you're in Internet Explorer, go ahead and open up a new window in one of those other browsers. All right, so let's move into the instructions for this task. We've already gone through the description. So there's quite a few instructions. We'll go over these during the training that I'm giving right now, but this you can use for your reference, or this could be used by someone who's just coming right to this task and is not getting sort of this virtual or an in-person training. So we have instructions for how we want to be labeling buildings and then also roads, but we'll talk more about that so you don't have to sit and read this right now. So go ahead and click Start Contributing. And what this website does is it allows humanitarian organizations like the Peace Corps or the Red Cross, State Department's Humanitarian Information Unit, plenty of organizations use this site to submit requests with areas that they need help mapping for various humanitarian or international development projects. And so what I've done is just create a basic file that shows Cambia. And this website has broken it up into these nice squares so that all of us can be mapping at the same time and not have to worry about overlapping with each other or mapping the exact same building at the same time. So go ahead and click any of the gray squares. These yellow ones have already been marked as completed. These gray squares with the gold outline, someone is currently working on, so I can see some people have already jumped on since we started, which is awesome. So I will just select this square right here, and it should turn blue once you're done. So go ahead and click Start Mapping. Now at some point, maybe right now or just in a minute, I can't exactly remember, if this is your first time coming to the Tasking Manager, you're going to have OpenStreetMap the OpenStreetMap website will open up for you and will ask for your permission to grant access to this website, to your OpenStreetMap account. Go ahead and say grant access or okay, whatever it is. That's the whole point of this website, and you won't be able to move forward unless you do that. So that's an important step. So once you've done that, we want to come over here to this Edit button. And you'll see some language that this square was locked by you. Basically, you have checked out this square for the next 2 hours, so no one else can click on it or work on it. When you're done, you want to either unlock it or mark it as done. If you forget to, within 2 hours, you'll be automatically unlocked out of it. So go ahead over to this drop-down menu and select the ID editor. And once you've clicked Edit with ID Editor, OpenStreetMap will open for you in a new tab. So just to sort of gauge how we're doing here, Liz, are you here yet, or should I slow down a little bit? How's it going for you? Oh, you might be on mute. We lost Liz. Okay. That's all right. We'll just keep going, and hopefully Liz will be able to join us again. All right. So what we have here, we're basically looking at 3 layers of information in this OpenStreetMap window. So in the background, as you can tell, obviously we have some satellite imagery. On top of that, we have some mapping that someone has already done in this area. So I know that this is part of the map and maybe not part of the imagery. Well, first of all, it just looks different, but then also I can click on this road and I can get information about it. Or I can click on this red square and see, okay, that's a building someone's traced. Whereas if I click on this building, nothing happens. So I know this has not been mapped yet. So the first thing that you're going to want to do once you get to this page with the imagery is come over to the background settings. It's over on the right side of the screen. Looks like maybe a little hamburger or 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. And you'll want to switch over to 100% brightness. I'm not sure why the site defaults to a darker imagery, but we can lighten it up and that will make it much, much easier to see. So you're going to click on this first box right over here. I was already at 100% brightness, but you might need to change yours. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and do that. And then we can zoom in and start looking at what we have in our imagery. So I can see a lot of my square has already been mapped, but there's still some buildings that I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to trace a building, and then we'll do that for a few minutes, and then I'll go over roads. We can look at questions, we can try to get other people on the Hangout, and then we will we'll map for a few hours, and hopefully we'll be able to get these cities completely on the map. I think both of them, or I think all of them, are maybe like 2/3 mapped, but not quite there. So it would be fantastic if we could actually just get them 100% on the map by 7 o'clock. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit further, and I'll start with this building here. So go ahead and also select a building in your window that you want to practice tracing. And we'll go up to this area button. Go ahead and click that. It'll turn blue once you do. And now you are in tracing mode. So I'm just going to start in one corner of the building and drag my mouse to each corner. I'm going to click in order to drop a point in each corner. And then I'm going to double click when I get to my last corner. And I know I've done it right because now I've got this nice red outline. So now we need to add a tag or a label to the building, or to any object that we've traced. If you come over to the left side of your screen, you'll see there's tons of different options for labeling areas. We're going to go with a building. Now we don't know what kind of building this is. It could be a house, could be an office, a school. We're not sure. We're really lucky that this Yali Fellow is located in Cambia, and we're really hoping to work with her in order to put her local knowledge onto this map, so she'll be able to maybe add some more detail about what kind of building these are, or add in some road names. But since we don't know for now, we're just going to call it a building. So we can come over here to this last building, and we know we've done it right now when the whole thing turns red. One more step. We want to square the corners of this building. That just will make every corner a perfect 90-degree angle, makes it look much nicer. So there's two ways to do this. The first is you can click on the thicker red outline. Might take a few clicks. And you'll see this sort of U-shaped menu bar pop up. You'll see you can delete what you just drew if you want to, get rid of it and try over. You can move it. You can make it perfectly round, and you very well might see some huts. So that's a great tool if you're tracing huts. But we want to make this one square. So go ahead and click on this square the corners of this area button, and you'll see there's actually a really handy shortcut. So by just pressing the S button on my keyboard, I can make it a perfect square. You'll see it's shifted ever so slightly. So go ahead and do that. And then we'll also practice saving. I usually save about every 10 edits or so. So you won't need to save every time, but let's just do it to practice. You'll see we have all sorts of hashtags in here, and we'll be doing that also to track how much we're able to accomplish together today. So I just heard from Liz. I'm going to see if I can get her back on the call. In the meantime, go ahead and practice tracing a few buildings, and then I will be back and we'll practice tracing roads. Okay, I'm looking at the Q&A real quick, and it looks like we have a question about zooming in to see the screen sharing. Yes, I'll make sure that it will be easier to see the screen sharing from this point forward. So hopefully that works. If that didn't, go ahead and submit another question, and we'll work on it to make the screen sharing easier to see. But I'm just going to be tracing a few buildings, and our viewers can go ahead and practice at the same time. And I'm trying to see how to get Liz back on the call as well. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay, I guess actually if you want to join the actual call, we would love to have you. We definitely have space, and I can just send you an invitation right through the call. So if you're interested, and I guess you don't mind if we see your email address, you can go ahead and submit your email address as a question. And so if the audience member who wanted to be in the call could do that, we can definitely add you in. Just let me know. All right, so hopefully everyone has had a few minutes to practice tracing a building. And I'm going to send Liz an invitation back into the call. All right, thank you again for your patience. Let's look at how to trace a road. I'm going to see if there are any roads that need tracing. This imagery is a little bit faint, a little bit hard to see, so I don't want to spend too much of your time right now looking. I'll just draw a practice road and then delete it, but you'll still be able to see how it's done. So if we want to draw a road, you're going to come up here to the line button and simply drop points. You obviously want to follow the curve of the line pretty closely. So draw as many points as you need. If it's a very curvy road, you'll need more. If it's straight, obviously you'll need less. Kind of best practice is not to put a bunch of tiny points right in a row. And then once you've drawn your road, you'll be able to label that as well. And let's look back again at the instructions, because it can be a little bit confusing at first when you're trying to figure out how you want to label a road. So if I come back here to the task itself, I can go to instructions, and these are taken right from the OpenStreetMap wiki page. There's a whole page about tagging roads and highways in Africa. And I think this quote really sums it up quite well. The road conditions in Africa do not always correspond to their economic and social role. A road typology should be based on the road importance and not on the surface or the visual appearance of the road. So a lot of times, I'll be in here looking at mapping that's been done, and there'll be a road that maybe connects two villages or goes through several hundred houses. But it looks kind of small, and maybe it's not paved. And so someone has marked it as a path. That's actually maybe inaccurate, because when we're looking at roads in these communities, as the quote describes, it doesn't matter as much whether the road is paved or the size of the road for how we want to tag it. It matters more what function that road serves. Again, of course, we cannot know for sure that a road serves a certain function when we're, sitting maybe halfway across the world, but we can make a pretty good guess. So when I'm drawing a road, I take a look at what it connects. Is it going through what looks like to be a neighborhood? If it does, I would call that a residential road. Is it a road that connects what looks like one village to another village? Yes, okay, that would be a tertiary road. Is it a very small road and it's not really going to a lot of houses? It looks like maybe it's going out into a field and it just ends there. That would be a track that's mainly used to get to agricultural areas. So those actually are not as key to be mapping today. We want to focus more on the bigger roads that are connecting houses or connecting villages. So again, you can always reference these instructions. They can definitely help you figure out the road tagging, or just ask if you have a question. I definitely am not an expert, but we'll figure it out together. So that's really it. That is the basics of editing an OpenStreetMap. It's, as you can see, it's very simple. You know, I teach this to 6th graders, and we hope you can just jump right in and start mapping. Of course, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to submit those, or if you're on the call, to just ask them. But I think, unless any of my colleagues have something they'd like to add, we can just sort of jump into mapping and get to work. Also, if you are just joining us, and I'll say this periodically throughout the training, because I think, or throughout the session, I think people will be maybe coming in at various times. If you are just joining and you need to learn how to edit an OpenStreetMap, just go ahead and write that, submit that as a written question, and I am happy to do as many of those little trainings that I just gave as are necessary.
I took a little bit, I looked a little bit around at the roads. It seems like most of the roads are drawn. Maybe a few residential roads could be added. Some roads could probably be reclassified. And there's also a surface type category, and lots of times it's a good thing to mark a road as either paved or unpaved.
Oh, nice. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, that's really helpful. Okay. Do you want to maybe share your screen and show us how to mark the roads as paved or unpaved?
Sure, let me try to do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I will zoom in to this road here. I could tell it's unpaved. Sometimes it's hard to see through the road. I think you could click on the map data button on the right toolbar, and then you could click on fill areas, actually map features, and you could temporarily turn a feature display on or off. So just if you want to see through the road, but I could tell it's an earthen road. So I'm going to click on it, and then on the left sidebar, one of the attributes is called surface, and the typical defaults are asphalt, unpaved, or paved. So you could just click on the drop-down menu and click unpaved. And that would fix this here. And then if you need to add another road, like it's sort of hard to see on my screen, but I could tell that there's another unpaved road here. I'd probably mark this as residential because it's connecting residential areas. And then finally, I noticed that these yellow roads here, they're tertiary roads. But I think according to the definition for tertiary, I look back at the instructions, it says roads interconnecting villages and the major streets and towns of some importance. But they're not really interconnecting or connecting anything. So I'd probably change these to unclassified roads, I think. So yeah, that's about it, just a few things I observed.
Cool, thanks, Tom. That was really helpful. I did not even know some of those tips, so that's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes they add new features in ID and I don't know about them, and I'm like, oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. I guess another tip that I was really excited about when I learned is there are keyboard shortcuts for basically everything, including line and area. So if you hover over them, line, the shortcut is 2, and area, the shortcut is 3. So I just feel like that alone drastically increases my mapping speed. Another question we get a lot is, what do you do? You know, so you're supposed to sort of stay in that purple or pink square that you have as you're mapping. You don't want to go outside of that because you could risk overlapping with someone else, and you might lose your edits when you try to save them. But what if, you know, a building intersects that line? So you can see I have that situation right here. For a building, generally, I mean, honestly, the odds of you and another person in the world mapping the exact same building are, I'm sure, insanely small. So probably not a risk. Go ahead and do that. If it's a road, that could present some issues since some of the roads are just one single line that goes on throughout maybe even a large section of a country. And so there is a chance that someone else is working on that line at the same time. So what I would do, let's say I needed to edit this line that goes through my square and another square, is I would just save my edits, which I needed to do anyways. I would make that edit to the line, and then I would save again right away so that if for some reason I did have an issue, the only thing I would lose was that one edit to the road and not any of the other edits that I had made. You might also find that something that somebody mapped was not done well, or maybe is just inaccurate. Maybe the imagery has been updated since they did their mapping. Since OpenStreetMap it's frequently called like the Wikipedia of world maps, because people are encouraged to update it very frequently. And if something is clearly wrong, you're definitely welcome to correct that. So, for example, this road right here, someone has drawn it basically a little bit over the corner of this house. Obviously, in real life, that road is not on top of that house, so I'm just going to shift it ever so slightly. Okay. Okay, so I actually think I am done with my square. Luckily some of it was already mapped when I opened it up, so that helped. There's also this big green space that I didn't have to do any mapping for, and because the imagery is a little bit hard to see, I can't tell where roads are or paths. I know that they're there, but I can't just make them up. So I'm going to mark this as done, and hopefully our Yali fellow will be able to go back in and maybe add in some of the roads I may have missed. But I'm going to go ahead and watch, so that once you've finished your square, you will you'll know what you are doing. Okay, so once I have saved all my final edits, I can head back to this Tasking Manager website, and I'm going to click this green mark task as done button. And now the square I was working on should turn yellow, meaning it's done. Someone who's an experienced mapper can go back in and try to validate my work and sort of take a second look and make sure I got everything and did it correctly. So if you're new, don't be too nervous about marking something as done, because an experienced mapper will definitely be going back in and checking your work. You might receive a message that it was invalidated. Don't worry, happens to everyone. It's happened to me. And so that's really not a big deal when it happens. It's just a way for you to learn and to get better at mapping. I'm going to take a look over at the Guinea task real quick. Doesn't look like we have anyone working there, so I'm going to jump over to the Guinea task. And I just heard from Liz. She's having some issues. She's not able to join back into the Hangout, which is unfortunate. But she kind of got cut off the call right when we were starting the tutorial. So actually, I think this is probably a good opportunity to go through the tutorial a second time for Liz and then anyone else who is now watching the call. So go ahead and just keep mapping. You can even tune me out if you're mapping and you know what you're doing and you want to listen to music or NPR or whatever. I'm going to just go real quick again how to do this mapping. So let's look at the Guinea tasks. Again, if you need to get to this website, here is the URL. It's tasks.hotosm.org. Let's go to the home page, and then we just want to look for number 1209. And it should pop up for you. All right, and we're covering here the towns of Foricaria and Farmorea. So let's start off in Foricaria. We have some basic instructions. What I talked about before, just that the Red Cross and other Ebola response and prevention organizations need better base maps for their operations, their logistics, contact tracing. So we can go ahead and click on instructions. And here we have lots of detail about how to edit the map. And I'll also go over this when I'm speaking, so you don't need to sort of sit and read this whole thing right now, but it's there for your reference. And in the future, if you're mapping tasks and you don't have a training like this, definitely go ahead and read the instructions, because there'll be some important information for you there to make sure you're doing this correctly. So we're going to click this Start Contributing button. And this website is so great because it breaks up the area that we want to map into all of these different squares so that you and I could be mapping right next to each other, but we're not going to overlap. We're not going to be editing the map over each other. So I'm going to go ahead and just click any of these gray squares. You can do the same. The yellow ones have already been done, and it'll turn blue once you've selected it correctly. So we're going to click Start Mapping now. And you might have a screen at some point pop up. If this is your first time using the Tasking Manager, you'll actually need to link this website to your OpenStreetMap account, and OpenStreetMap will ask for your permission to do that. So you can go ahead and click Grant Access or OK or whatever the button says, but you'll need to do that to keep moving forward. So now we're going to move into the actual editing. And as I mentioned before, this will only work if you're in usually Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. It does not like ID Editor, the ID Editor does not like Internet Explorer. So we'll come over here to this little drop-down menu, and you can choose ID Editor. I'm going to open that up. And OpenStreetMap should now open for you in a new tab. So that might take a minute to load. Go ahead and just check out what you have in your window on OpenStreetMap. We're now in the actual map editor. We have several layers of information going on here. So in the background, you can see obviously we have satellite imagery for Icaria. On top of that, it looks like someone has already done some mapping. I know that two reasons. One, obviously, this is not what a real river looks like in satellite imagery, so it just looks different. And then also, I can tell that something's already been mapped because when I click on it, for example, when I click on this road, I get information about it over here on my left side of the screen. When I click on this, nothing's been mapped here, and nothing happens. And then finally, the third sort of layer that we have going on here is this pink or purple square, and this is just the square that you checked out. So you'll want to generally stay in these lines. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So go ahead and zoom in to your square and sort of check out what you have going on. The first thing that you'll want to do, if this is, again, your first time editing, is lighten up your imagery. For some reason, I'm not sure why, this site defaults to a darker imagery, so you can head over to the background settings. It's over on the right side of your screen. Kind of looks like a hamburger or 3 pieces of paper. Go ahead and click on that, and this background menu should open up for you. And you'll want to come to this little square and just pick 100% brightness. Mine's already at 100%, so just make sure that yours is too. Once you've done that, we'll zoom in, and I'm going to find a building to trace so I can demonstrate that for you. Okay, so for example, let's work on tracing this building. I can come up here to this area tool, and all I'm going to do is click on one corner. I'm going to drag my mouse over to each corner of this building. So actually a little bit of a funny setup, so I want to make sure I get all of the building included here. And then when I get to the last corner, I'm going to double click. And I know that I've done it right because I have this nice red outline that covers the building. Next, I need to give this building a label or a tag. So I can come over here to the left side of my screen, and you can see there's lots of different ways that we can label the objects that we've drawn, but we're going to go ahead and select building. And then I'm going to come down here one more time and click building again. And I know that I've finally done it right when the inside of it turns red. So that's as easy as it is to draw a building. There's one more step in this process. We want to square the corners of the building. So there's a really simple way to make all of our corners a perfect 90 degrees. It looks much nicer if anyone's trying to use the map. And we can do that one of 2 ways. I can either click on the red outline. It might take a few clicks. And then I'll have this sort of U-shaped menu bar pop up. Lots of different options here. You can delete what you just drew if you messed it up. Here's a cool tool that will make whatever you drew a perfect circle. So you might see actually huts when you're tracing today, and that can help you make those huts nice and round. You can use this button here to move an object, and this button is to square the corners of your building. You'll see, though, there's actually a keyboard shortcut, which is just the letter S on your keyboard, and I use that one because it's much, much quicker and easier to do. So I'm going to square my corners. You might see them shift ever so slightly. Yep. And then I'm going to save my work. I usually save about every 10 edits. And that is the basics of drawing a building. So if you're viewing and you're learning this for the very first time, we'll take a few minutes now. I'll trace some buildings so you can watch how I do it if you need to. Otherwise, go ahead and practice tracing a few buildings on your own. And let's say in like 2 or 3 minutes, we'll regroup, and then I'll go over how to trace a road as well.
This is Benson. One thing I wanted to point out, I think a lot of people probably noticed, but you can kind of see who's mapping alongside of you in a couple different ways. The most obvious, if you're just in the editor, and if you zoom at the very bottom right, you'll see edits by and then the names of everyone's handles, and that will change depending on how you zoom in and out. So whatever extent of the map you're looking at, it will show you who's editing within that space, even if it's outside of your square.
Awesome, thank you, Benson. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's pretty cool to see either if someone is mapping like in the same city as you, or where people are mapping all over the world. We can also, in each of the tasks that we're working on, we can go to stats, and we can see who has been mapping in them, and how many squares they've done, and the sort of progress over time. Apparently we have a Captain Slow has been mapping in Guinea so far and has finished 2 squares. And over here, this Sierra Leone task has been up actually since about the beginning of September. So we've had a few contributors here. So I'm going to save my work, and then I will talk about tracing roads, and then Tom is going to show us how, after I just show the basics of a road, Tom can show us how to differentiate whether a road is paved or not paved, what kind of surface area it has, because that's really important to know as well when some of these organizations are planning where to send their vehicles and which routes they need to take. So first, I'm going to see if there's a road that needs mapping here. Okay, well here's a little path that goes off a main road over to a building, so I can use that to practice. To draw my road or path or whatever it might be, you can even use this for a river. I'll go over to this line button, and since in real life this major road and this little path actually do connect, I want my mapping to reflect that. So I'm going to start by clicking right on this road here, and then I'm just going to drop points along the way to follow the curves of this path. And it looks like it ends here where there's some trees, so I'll double click. And then again, just like the buildings, I want to label this. So I can come over here to road, and I'm going to call this one just a track, probably, and then save my work. But remember, if you aren't sure what to label a road, you can always reference these instructions, or go ahead and ask us the question, and we can try to answer it as well right here on the call. So Tom, do you want to explain your trick for marking a road as like what surface area it is?
Sure thing. Let me share my screen. Okay. I am evaluating some of these roads in this task here, and I noticed that if I click on them, I don't see any attribute for the surface type, but I have a hard time seeing what's actually how the imagery looks like below the actual line. So I'm going to. Everyone see my screen, by the way?
Yeah, you're good to go.
On this sidebar here, there's a button that is called Map Data. So I'm going to click here. It opens another menu. And if you click on Map Features, it will show you each layer that's currently drawn on your screen. And you could temporarily turn the display on and off. So I'm going to click on Major Roads, and I could see that, in fact, none of these roads are paved. So this is something I'm going to want to improve. So I will click on one of these roads, and then on the left sidebar, I see all the different attributes you could put. But one of the most important ones is surface material. So I will click unpaved for this road here. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool, thank you. I just have one more thing I want to point out, and then we can really get into some mapping. So I see someone has done some of this mapping before me, and I know that these buildings are not labeled correctly because they're yellow. So someone actually accidentally, again, not a big deal. Definitely, we welcome all sorts of beginners to the platform. But they marked this as a residential area. I guess technically it is, but residential area refers more to how a piece of land is used than just one single building. So to correct that, I'm going to click on that building, click this residential area tag to change the feature, and then I can just change it to a building. They also didn't square their corners, so I just squared the corners. So that's just to emphasize the point that, again, this map is a wiki. Far from done, far from perfect. So if you see something wrong, don't hesitate to change it. Sometimes something might appear wrong. If you're mapping for a natural disaster, that can be a little bit different. Because there might be people on the ground who are mapping what they see on the ground, and maybe it's not quite reflected in the imagery yet. But that's why it's really important to read the instructions every time, because whoever is posting the task will let you know if you shouldn't be changing or deleting something that you see. But generally, if something looks wrong, you can go ahead and just fix it.
I'm excited. It seems like we are getting off to a good start.
Yeah, there's a lot of people mapping this Sierra Leone task.
I logged in as 5 different people just to pad the numbers.
So Benson should have suspected. Okay, cool. So now that everyone should know how to map, I want to just show a few more cool little things, and also show you how we're going to really measure the impact that we're having this afternoon. So go ahead and keep mapping. I think I'm on screen share. Cool. So first thing I want to show you is this really cool tool called Show Me the Way. It's also a song, so you have to be careful what you search for. Okay. So if you're new, if you've never seen this before, definitely take a pause and look at what I'm showing on my screen. It's loading for a minute. But it's this really amazing website that just shows all of the edits that are being made to OpenStreetMap in real time. So once we get it up and loaded, it'll be really cool to see where other people are mapping and what they're mapping and everything like that. Actually, I'll just let you know when it loaded, because it takes a minute. There we go. So we see someone. Tom, we just saw you up on Show Me the Way.
Yes.
I love it when that happens. So exciting. Yeah, here's someone in Chile. So the OpenStreetMap community has over 2 million contributors, which is really fantastic in terms of crowdsourced projects.
I heard Chile has a strong OSM community too.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. All of these are in Chile right now. So Anne Claire, do you know if right now in Sierra Leone, is there sort of a strong contingency of people in the country who are using OpenStreetMap? Do you have a sense of that?
Do you mean relief organizations or people helping to map?
Either or, relief organizations or just citizens who are interested in mapping. Anything that information you have from the ground, I think, is always really interesting to help make that connection.
Yeah. The people I have spoken who are from Sierra Leone, OpenStreetMap seems to be rather new. I know a few people who know it, but otherwise most people are new to it. On the email list, I've seen a few people, 1 or 2 from Sierra Leone. So I think we should really connect to them. But there's people willing to help. So I hope that to kind of spread that this exists and it can be helpful. But like in many African countries, internet is always difficult to access, or there will be lack of electricity, so it's not always easy to use it. But I hope maybe what we're doing now and in the coming time is going to help to promote, that people know about this.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that brings up a really good point, that one of the reasons we sort of crowdsource this work, or we do this this remote mapping of these areas is because there is still quite a lack of internet connection, even access to maybe computers or power sources where a lot of this mapping can be done. And so, right now what we're doing is really just basic data entry. We're getting the grunt work out of the way so that, for example, our Yali fellow who lives in Cambia, so she doesn't have to spend her time doing this. She can spend her time adding her local knowledge to the map and then using that data in her work. Or so that the response organizations, again, who just right now don't have the time or the capacity to be tracing every little building and every little road, they are then free to use that data in a meaningful way instead of having to spend all their time generating that data, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope actually, if anyone is listening or watching this this Google Hangout and they have local knowledge, that they should let us know, and then we can help to add this knowledge to the maps. That would be great.
Absolutely. Okay, so I was also going to show how we're going to track our results here. So there's this really cool website It's kind of a funky URL, but if you, I think, let's see, can we just Google results maps, OpenStreetMap, and let's see what we get. Yeah, so if you Google results maps, OpenStreetMap, you'll find this, and that might be something easier to remember. But there's all sorts of different tools for visualizing parts of OpenStreetMap. We want to use this filtering OpenStreetMap by a specific comment. So for this task, for example, I created this hashtag SLGN 2015, Sierra Leone, Guinea 2015, nothing like too creative. But I can type it in here, and probably nothing will show up right now because it takes maybe a few hours or a day for these edits to load. But when we look back in a few days, we're going to be able to see exactly how many edits were done during this specific mapping party. Okay, yeah, we have nothing right now, which I figured, but we can look, for example, hashtag Peace Corps and see all of the edits that have been done on behalf of Peace Corps in the last month. Maybe. Okay, takes a minute to load. Okay, cool. And so now we get all of this data that's fairly real time, maybe a few hours or 1 or 2 days lag, but that's more to do with OpenStreetMap than this website, and is not really an issue. So we'll be able to see the number of contributors. We can see for Peace Corps in the last month we've had 103, the total number of map changes, how many buildings we've added, how many highways, divided by country, everything like that. So that'll be really nice. And I definitely encourage you, if you're interested, it's always fun to sort of have a measurement of how much we've accomplished in the next day or two, to come back and search for that SLGN 2015, and we'll kind of see what we've accomplished together. think my roommates are starting to get home, so if you can hear them, I apologize in advance. We've also had roofing work being done on our house all day, so I'm very grateful that that wasn't like as loud and noisy as it could have been for this call. But those are the perils of video calls when you're teleworking because of the Pope, I guess.
Just make sure you update the roof type in OpenStreetMap.
Oh yes.
That is actually something that's really useful for a lot of these use cases. People will mark tin roofs or thatched roof or another structure type, or in urban environments where people like our colleagues at the World Bank and our colleagues in the American Red Cross do a lot of work on disaster mitigation, so they need to have as much detail as possible on the building types. And some of that is really necessary to get at from the ground, and this same remote mapping process gives people a starting point. Then they know where the building perimeters are, and then they can go out and actually survey the buildings. But it is useful, at least as a starting point, to kind of see what you can from space or from the air, to give at least a rough sense of what type of building you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's really good to know as well. I guess I'll change my roof type from leaky and filled with wasps to not leaky and another health hazard. Benson, do you know for Ebola response if what kind of, be interesting to maybe talk for a minute, what kind of of that detailed information, maybe roof type or building type or anything is most useful or maybe unclear to the organizations on the ground? Or is it really just sort of knowing where buildings and roads are that is like really helpful to them?
Let me unmute. Yeah, the cases I know of, because there was really, literally zero widely available maps of any detail, and really very few maps even that governments or other institutions had access to. So just having the roads and the locations of buildings seemed to be what was most useful and what was in demand. There's some mapping tasks that we were supporting with imagery, by providing imagery in Liberia, and this was after everything had crested, but there are ongoing projects by Last Mile Health, who are still working there, and they're basically engaged in community health worker programs, supporting community health workers and building capacity so they can continue to not only do monitoring for Ebola, but as you mentioned earlier, other diseases. Since it makes sense to kind of link the programs and only have one health worker out in these very hard to reach places. So in that case, just having detailed building data was very, very useful.
Yeah.
So Courtney, since I'm also quite a new beginner on OpenStreetMap, some of the satellite images are really vague. So what should I do if it looks like a building, but I'm not even sure if it's a building or just, I don't know, an open space?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One thing I always do, and I'm sure you've thought of this, but obviously, looking to see if there's any sort of like shadow associated with whatever you're looking at, can help answer that question. Do you want to maybe share your screen and show us what you're looking at specifically?
Okay. Oh, I was muted, sorry. So, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So here, this is shade here, so this must be a building, but here it becomes blurry, so maybe it's because of a tree. So what I started doing was something like this, but then there's always this little, I don't know, would it be a correct way? It's in Dutch, by the way, my site, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's how I would map it. Because, yeah, just, from what I know of at least Guinea, and I'm guessing Sierra Leone is, at least somewhat similar in how buildings are structured. Most likely, yeah, that would be a square corner over there and is probably just blocked by a tree or something else. So, yeah, I think that's a smart way to do it, definitely.
Okay, because there was other ones I really had difficulties with. Oh yeah, here, I didn't map it very well. So here it becomes very blurry.
Mm.
It is something, but could it just be, and there's not much, I mean, it's not a town where it could be just a square, so probably it will be something.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a building. I think I can see like a slight shadow.
But it's, so it's better, oh, this one is, what did I do to this one? Yeah, I couldn't, it looks like.
That one is weird. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I mean, when we're getting down to like that size, which is really small, things could even be like cars or semi trucks, you know what I mean? So it's so hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's really sort of up to you and what you feel comfortable doing. Luckily, hopefully our Yali fellow will be able to take a second look and give her perspective on what things are. But yeah, that's really sort of a tough call. So I'll let you make that call for yourself. Yeah.
I was looking, there's no way to comment like, hey, I'm not sure this is correct.
No. One thing well, actually, that's a good point. One thing you can do, let me go back to my screen for a second, is when you either unlock your task or you mark it as done, you can leave a comment here. So, for example, if there were some buildings I mapped and I wasn't sure if they really were buildings, I could say, like, hey, I mapped what I thought were buildings, but not entirely sure, and then leave that comment. And then if someone came back and mapped after me, or if someone came and validated my work, they would at least see that comment, so they would know to be looking for something like that might not be a building.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to let you know that we are planning to organize a next event in October during the Global Diaspora Week. We don't know the details yet, but if you want to be involved, know more about it, let us know. I think Courtney will post her email address in announcement or in the Google Hangout information. So if you want to be involved in anything that's gonna come after this, please let us know and we'll send you more information. So hopefully in October, and I just Googled it, it's gonna be the week of 11 till 17 October. Hopefully we'll organize a next event.
That's great. Thank you, Anne Claire. And yes, I will. I'm actually showing this on my screen right now. So here's the events page. And right now, I will just type in my email address. And we'll also be posting follow-up links and other interesting news here in the event. So if you aren't able to, if you weren't able to get these links, during the mapping training, we're going to post them, and then also feel welcome to always just shoot me an email if you want to get involved with events like this in the future. If you have questions about mapping, if you definitely want an invite to a Diaspora Week event, anything like that, just let me know.
Courtney, you can throw in the mapgive at state.gov as well.
What, mapgive at state.gov?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So I have another question for you. I've been mapping buildings in an area that has been marked with this yellow line, and I guess in English would be something like living area, or I don't know how to translate my Dutch OpenStreetMap. After I have been mapping all the buildings, should I remove this yellow line?
So it's a yellow line, like showing is it a residential area?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Um,
Because it seems as if they just put a line around, like, okay, hey, there's a bunch of houses in here.
right. It doesn't hurt to keep it in. There may have been a reason, someone may have marked that just to come back later to map the buildings, but that's a separate classification, so it doesn't hurt to have it marked as a residential area.
So you know there's people living there. Okay. Thank you. I'm looking at the overview of the Sierra Leone map. It's amazing. We've done about 3/3, I guess. Really cool.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot. Of course, there always is the trick that you can mark something as done when it's not actually done. So that's why we always have people validating and going back through the squares and making sure we have all the buildings and everything's correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's actually a tip for everyone, whoever's watching or listening. Make sure, the tendency is to check it in as done, but you can just unlock the square. So if you're not done with it or you think there's more work to do, just do unlock instead of mark as done.
That's a great point. And actually, I think I'm going to switch over to doing some validating now that we've gotten quite a bit of mapping done. If you're new to mapping, I would maybe stay away from validation at first, just until you get comfortable and you've seen a lot of different scenarios. But if you're watching and you are experienced with mapping and you want to do some validation, that's always really, really critical as well.
I marked a lot of squares as done because I inspected them and there was only forests and there wasn't any buildings or roads to draw.
Yeah.
I have to hop off, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Benson, for everything and helping coordinate all this.
Yeah, well, thanks to you for running it. Yeah, for anyone watching, just check out the Google event page. I put some links in there with some background info and use cases specifically in this region, and also a link to the upcoming Global Diaspora Week in October. And thanks again.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Benson. And just generally, if you're finding this video on YouTube, like along, like years from now or something, mapgive.state.gov also has a lot of great resources.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to sign off as well, but yeah, thanks, Courtney. This was good. I think I will try to show the first part of this video to the VSFS interns.
Awesome. Cool.
Great.
We finished most of task 1168 already.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait. A few days, I'll check the numbers and I'll make sure to send that out as well. Exactly how many edits we're getting done.
Cool.
Okay. See you, Anne Claire.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Tom. Thank you.
Bye.
Hmm.
right, Anne Claire. I think I'm going to sign off as well. But it was fantastic meeting you, and I'm like really impressed with, wow, everything we got done today. So,
It's great.
Yeah. Thank you again for helping organize, and I look forward to the next one during Diaspora Week.
Yeah, see you then.
Okay, excellent.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.